Okay, welcome to the Finance Committee meeting today, which is May 18th. I'll call this meeting to order at 7:08. So we'll start with the agenda items. We'll move a couple things around just so we can continue on. First on the list was actual payroll from Ashley, but at this current time, we don't have any outstanding items in payroll. I think there was one change this month that everyone was notified in regards to, and that was that the check stub?
Yeah.
Or, Tim, you want to elaborate
Correct.
a little bit briefly?
Absolutely. So we've decided to essentially go paperless as a village for Paycor. We used to have reports from Paycor delivered to us along with direct deposit notifications. We've gone ahead and eliminated that. If anybody wants to print off their own direct deposit notifications, they can do that through the Paycor portal. But that change will save the village about $12,000 a year. So we felt like that was a change worth making. All the reports we used to get are also available for us to print off with the portal. So we'll do that every payroll.
Great. And I think that's pretty much it for update with the payroll. I don't think there's any other things going on. Do you agree?
I agree, yes.
Okay. Any questions? If not, we'll continue on with the finance update with you, Tim, as well. We'll come back to the income tax portion.
Absolutely.
I'm sure everybody received the comments from Tim for the month, but we'll just have Tim go in and review a little bit of an update, especially with the LGS. If you could just give us an update
Absolutely.
on that. I know in your report it said something about the 13th being completed, but maybe you can give us more of an update.
Right.
Pam, I'm sorry, and Tim, really quickly,
Sure.
just a couple of things that we didn't do. We didn't
Sure.
do a roll call for the committee, and then we also didn't do a review of the minutes. So I think we need to record that if we don't have the minutes to approve tonight, that we'll need to make sure we approve last month's minutes at the next finance committee meeting.
Okay, so I'm sorry, we'll start with the roll call.
So committee members, Pamela Fitzgerald.
Present.
And myself, Kiana Trabue, is present. And then Esther Boyd.
Present.
Thank you. Okay. And then we'll just, for the record, indicate that we will need to approve the minutes from last month's Finance Committee meeting at our next meeting. We don't have them in front of us tonight.
So yeah, I'll make sure that we have last meeting, which would have been April and May, because we'll approve those too, because those didn't go out as well. So I'll make sure that that's part of the package. Did I miss anything else?
Nope, we're all good. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. That was a good catch. Thank you. And I'll make sure to just include those items on the agenda as long as we're doing this, because you know, normally we don't. So long as we're doing it, I'll make sure that's included so we don't forget. Okay, Tim, we'll just move over to you with the LGS update.
Yes. So I spoke with, the report states I spoke with LGS on Wednesday. I also followed up with them today. They were, as of last week, they were looking at maybe a Tuesday deadline. When I spoke to them today, they pushed it back to Thursday a little bit. Unfortunately, they had a couple other items that had come up internally for them. The audit report or reports will be done this week, though, which is good. That'll give me time to review those, and then we can make those part of the council meeting for review and approval by council. We've pretty much given LGS everything that they need. We're still waiting on a couple of items, specifically some information on a lease, but those should be coming in should have actually come in this evening. So when I get back to the office this morning, I'll see if that doesn't come through on my email. But that's actually moving along quite well. They have the village reconciled up through 2019 and into 2020, I believe. And they are currently working on getting the fund balances together as well, which will be very helpful.
So question, so they're supposed to be done with 2019 as well. Is that what I heard?
Correct.
So 2018 is done?
2018, the financial statements are done. The notes are mostly complete. Again, kind of waiting on a little bit of lease information that's kind of gotten held up for whatever reason. But yes, 2018, the actual financial statements are ready.
And then 2019 will be done sometime near the end of the month.
Right. The deadline that they've given me is Thursday of this week. Honestly, as long as they're done this week, that'll be fine. That'll give me time to review them, and then I can go ahead and email those out before the weekend, and that'll allow council to review those as well before the next council meeting.
So at that time, will we be done with our expenses with LGS, their services to us? Would that be, will we be, pretty much caught up and done, or do we need them for any other services?
That should be just about it. The financial statements are going to be the biggest part of that. I know that as part of their contract, they're going to reconcile us up through March of 2020. But that fee has already been accounted for. So there really shouldn't be any additional charges. We would only pay them for the time that they'll complete things under their current contract.
So at that point, if they're going to reconcile through March of 2020, then you would just take over at that point. Is that how?
That is correct. Yes. Yes.
So moving forward after that, okay. Does anybody else have questions on LGS? Okay, so now we will go into the reports review. Any questions on the reports that was received, appropriations, general fund balances? There was quite a few reports that were sent out. Monthly expense reports, the payment listing, overtime reporting that was requested as well, and also the budgeted receipts versus the actual receipts. So I kind of lumped that together because those are all the reports that I actually requested. But does anybody have any questions before Tim goes into his review on some of these reports? I had a couple questions if no one else has them.
I have one.
Okay, go ahead.
And I can wait until you're done.
Okay. I noticed there was quite a few voided checks for April. When I listened to the, I think it was the payment listing.
Okay.
And I was wondering if, it looked to me like a couple of them had been voided and then sent out again. So I don't know if there was a problem with, what account they came out of, but there was quite a few of them. You could see the ins and outs. So I was wondering if there was some cause for that.
The voided checks, most of the time with the voided check, it looks like a couple of them, they unfortunately just kind of put in the wrong amounts. A lot of times what happens with those voids is that if a mistake is made when the check is printed out, UAN doesn't allow you to simply reprint the same check. You have to void the check and reissue it because everything is pre-numbered. So most of those, it's either the check was loaded incorrectly or there was a mistake made on the check somehow. So when that happens on those, we have to void them out and reissue them.
So I got a question. So with that system, which I'm not familiar with, when you void these out, is there some reason that you put in the system of why these have been voided, or just for history reasons?
Yes, I believe there's a line in there to state why the check was voided.
Okay.
If I can add something to that, with the system, with our checks, I've seen it happen more than once. If you fail to put the checks in the printer, in your tray, to print your checks out, you're printing them on plain paper by accident. And that's what happens every once in a while till we catch it. So.
And I'm sure it was, because when you look at the sequence on these checks, I mean, it makes sense, 83, 84, 85, 86, and on and on. So there was a group of them that evidently,
Yes.
I mean, that makes sense that we're probably printing back to back from each other. And then you can see the V's on them. So that does
Right.
make sense.
Yep.
I know we're not the only community that's made that mistake.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure. I was just curious, was it, something, with the accounts, or was Tim trying to clean up something from before? So that's why I decided to ask the question.
Yeah, no, it's just the way LGS processes UAN processes the check payments,
Okay.
or deals with mistakes.
I have a couple questions, actually. I have 4, sorry. When I went through all the sheets.
That's all right.
One of them was on overtime. So I noticed that on your overtime, there was about $60,000 that was spent for the first quarter. I just wanted to ask you, do we anticipate as a village for the overtime to continue at this going rate of around $60,000 a quarter? And I know it has a lot to do with the police and fire, that we're short people there. But if you really look at it at $60,000 a quarter, you're talking about $200,000 in overtime. And I know that we have shortages in those 2 departments.
Yes.
Any feedback you can give us on that?
I think that kind of goes in another part of the report. When we met with the fire chief and the police chief, we talked about staffing issues. And firefighting, I believe as I recall, they have a full staff. The police are shorthanded. I think until we hire another police officer or 2, the police will continue to have those types of overtime. You'll notice that there was a drop in overtime in April for the police, and I actually asked Lieutenant Forth about that today, and he said that was related to they weren't running traffic as often in April, so that dropped it down in April. But they're going to start picking that back up, and I would expect the overtime to go back up to the other to those previous rates for the police officers. Fire, I believe it will probably be about the same as well, yes. And I will talk to Chief Johnson about that to see if there's any way we can lower that as well.
Do we even know that if we budgeted that much in overtime, $200,000?
The budgets for the police and fire were created using the numbers from the prior year. I believe my understanding is that overtime was similar for the prior year. So in essence, yes, we did budget for that. But it would be, even if we're spending the same amount at the end of the day, it would be better for the police and firefighters if we had more staff, just so they can get a little bit more rest, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But certainly,
too, yeah.
Certainly for the police, I know they're quite short-staffed right now.
Because they're down the heads. So if they're down the heads, the money, for those heads, is being spent on overtime, trying to get people to help. Yeah. I had a third question, which is, I got a couple questions that are geared to the tax. I'm not sure if Charles is joined.
I haven't heard him.
Okay.
But go ahead. Let me see if I can answer him.
One of them was just, since some of the money is there, have we planned on starting and repairing the roads? And if so, when? I know I'm getting that question from some of my neighbors.
Absolutely. And probably Jerry can speak to that almost better than I can. I know that there's been some talk about the different contractors and bidding with that. But you are correct. The money is there. Whenever the bids come in, I'm sure, and the timing on that is, I'm sure it relates to the bids as well. We can go ahead and start those. And we can start paying for that.
I saw Charles' picture on there. I think he's on here.
He is. Charles is
Okay.
on there. So Pam, if I can talk about
Sure.
the road levy, we do have funds in that road levy. After our last council meeting, I reached out to Anthony and our engineers about moving forward with the advertisement of both Riddle Road Phase 2 and Shady Lane. Those are the two main projects we've been holding off on. They were still working remotely. They said they didn't get back into the office, but we can hopefully before the end of the month or early June have advertisements out so we can get those projects completed this year.
Do you have any timeline of when approximately, just so when I get these questions, is it going to be third quarter? Is it going to be?
Well, what question are you asking? When they'll be completed or when they'll start?
No, when they, our neighbors will see, the residents will see something done to the roads.
Well, I can't really give you a date because by the time we bid them out and see who the low bidder is and we contract with them, I don't know what their construction schedule is. I'm hoping that we have a contractor that can jump in fairly quickly, which when I say fairly quickly could be 30 to 60 days, they could start that project. That's after we receive the bids and award a contract. We can continue to keep you posted. We're hoping to get these advertised either later this month or early next month. The engineers were concerned with a lot of contractors not coming to public bid meetings that we wouldn't get many bids. So kind of held off on that.
Okay. Just because I know some of this stuff was part of last year, right? It came in question that it was supposed to be done. Was it last year?
I started in July of last year, and I think it was Shady Lane, I guess, and probably part of Riddle were talked about 2017, or I'm sorry, 18 going into 19.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Thanks. Thanks for the update. I had one last tax. Well, you know what? I'll wait until Charles gives his tax part, and then I'll ask my last question because it's tax related.
All righty.
Rosemary, did you have any questions on the overtime reporting?
You asked the question I was going to ask.
Okay. Okay, Tim, I think I'll turn it over to you on a couple topics, and that would be
Pam.
Yes.
I'm sorry, if I can.
Sure.
Regarding the traffic stops that where it was down last, but it was in April.
Mm-hmm.
They were saying because they weren't doing as many traffic stops, but they were supposed to start back up again.
Correct.
My understanding that the traffic stops, the amount of money, basically approximately that they bring in, should pretty much cover the overtime that's needed to do those traffic stops. That was one of the reasonings for going ahead and saying that we were going to put that extra amount of money in the budget because it's supposed to more or less balance out.
I would think that the amount that we bring in from traffic stops would probably cover the overtime for the police. Yes.
It should balance out. So,
yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yana, you had something you were going to ask.
I did. I was actually going to ask about the voided checks, but Mr. Fitzgerald covered it.
There any more questions? If not, I'm going to turn it over to Tim on his finance director's report, which includes various topics, as well as I think one of my questions on my agenda was the swim safe contract, which he will touch on, and the compensation and the retention of police and fire, which he's been working on, and just his finance director's new business report. I'll turn it over to Tim for a little bit.
Absolutely. We'll go over really briefly some of the reports that were provided to the committee. We did include budget versus actual reports for appropriations and revenue. We've noted that we've collected 36% of budgeted revenues and 31% of appropriations, which is pretty reasonable given where we're at in the year. We did add 2 new funds to our chart of accounts. We have a Mayor's Court Computer Fund, as well as a United States Health and Human Services Stimulus Fund. The Mayor's Court Computer Fund is there to account for court computerization money that's collected as part of court fees, and then the the U.S. Health and Human Services Fund, is there to account for a payment that was sent to the village by the U.S. Health and Human Services. That is federal money and therefore needs to be accounted for in a federal fund. We are still waiting for guidance as to what we're allowed to spend that money on. So I'll keep everybody up to date as soon as they send me something. As far as receipts and disbursements, the village collected $1,351,490 in receipts. We spent $682,304. About 45% of the revenue this month was made up of property tax receipts. General fund is in line with our receipts and disbursements for the most part, where we've collected 32% of general fund budgeted revenues, and we spent 30% of the general fund appropriations. The swim safe contract, I'll touch on that real briefly. Jerry's going to be able to speak to that better than I can, but I know that we've gone ahead and essentially terminated / suspended the contract with swim safe. This will allow us to utilize the services from swim safe this year or next, depending on the future decisions made by the village regarding the pool. I believe Jerry sent a letter out from swim safe to all of the council members that should have a little bit more information on that as well. And really, I guess before I move on, does anybody have any questions about anything that we just kind of went over?
Tim.
Yes, ma'am.
I thought we had a computer fund already that was set up already for the police department, for that department.
I believe we, go ahead. I'm sorry.
You go ahead.
No, I believe we did in the past, and then at some point, somebody did away with it. When I came in, it was currently being accounted for in the general fund.
Really?
Yes.
Was that, okay. I don't know what when that happened, but yeah, I thought we did have that fund, and we had determined the dollar amount that was supposed to go into it.
Yes.
At one point, we were putting, it seemed like an excessive amount in it, and it was beginning to grow and grow and grow. And what we could use it for was so limited, and we were never going to use those that much funds. So we decided to lower the amount.
Correct. Yes, and I remember reading the different legislations for that. I actually have a couple of opinions as to what auditor state opinions, I should say, as to what that money can be used for, and I'll probably go ahead and send those out to the finance committee / council in the next month or so. I was going to try to write a couple things up about it.
Okay. And then also, like you said, there is legislation. There should be legislation as to the dollar amount that we were putting into it.
There is. I believe the last one I read was $1 per ticket, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, something like that. So you'll give your opinion as to, based on what you find out that we can use it for, you'll give your opinion as to whether or not we should readjust that dollar amount or leave it like
yes.
that. Okay.
Yes, I will. Absolutely.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
So I have a question. When you say you did away with the fund, you got rid of well, not you. for what you found, you said that you got rid of the fund. The fund was not there anymore.
Correct. When I came into when I became finance director and I reviewed the different funds that the village had, that fund was no longer there. They were
How do you
accounting
do
for
that? How does it? I mean, not you. How does that dissolve like that?
It technically should not. In order to get rid of a fund, you're supposed to go through a court system essentially to get rid of it, unless you can say that the fund is no longer of any use. And even then, a lot of times you have to have some sort of authorization to do so. I can't speak to what happened before I came in. Unfortunately, the fund simply was not there.
Okay.
So basically, any dollars that was in that fund was put into the general fund?
Yes, and it looks like there was a line item for it, so it's one of the other things I'll work with LGS on to determine what the fund balance in there should be.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I'm just interested how that could be absorbed, the tracking of that.
Correct.
I mean, just from history, just so we know, everybody understands how funds, should just not be absorbed and not disappear like that.
No,
now
that
we're starting to review things as a whole, committee as a whole.
correct.
So.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. The simple answer is that it shouldn't have been able to happen, but it did somehow.
Okay. Thanks. Any other questions? And Tim can continue on if not.
Do you want any other information on SwimSafe?
That'd be helpful if there's any updates from the last time you spoke about it.
Yes.
Well, after our council meeting, council, based on the recommendation, agreed to cancel the contract. And when I wrote the letter on April 29th, I sent that to council, to the mayor, and also to Stephen, our rec director. And in that, I used the terminology terminate/suspend because for two reasons. One, it didn't have any information from the governor when they were even thinking about opening pools. And two, we have an option for next year. And we did shut down for this year. I wanted to keep that option available. So in essence, I said as of April 29th, we're suspending our contract with SwimSafe, basically suspending the operation of the pool. Now the governor's looking at opening pools, but I still have a very big concern because in speaking to the president of SwimSafe, he says, well, if you buy a reservation software system, you can allow your members to get online every day and like have waves of people coming in and out of the pool. I just don't think that's wise for us to do at this point. Give us some other options. And I will start from the bottom. Some of them are, if the pool doesn't operate, they would still charge us the $8,000 that we pay them for April. If we decide to keep the pool closed all year and we put water in it, they will maintain the water levels, the chlorine system, and the pump and filter room to make sure everything is functioning properly. So we won't have any surprising breakdowns for next year. The other thing is, this is an aluminum pool. I don't know if anybody knew that. It's an aluminum pool and it's welded together in pieces. I asked the president of SwimSafe, if we leave this pool empty, what will happen with the heat of the summer? Will it damage that pool, crack our weld joints, do anything? He goes, I'm not very familiar with it. So we've talked about putting water in, letting them manage the pool without the pool opening for the balance of the year. And we would owe them another $6,500 to do that because they have personnel come down there throughout the pool season. I'll say our closed pool season to just manage the water quality. We don't have stagnant water in there either. And then he just gave us other options. If we delay the opening of our pool to June 15th, July 1st, and July 15th. I really don't think those are viable options because we still have the concerns of the social distancing, both on the pool deck and in the pool water, which is going to require more personnel. Stephen and I have talked about this, and the concern is when they come back and say, in the contract, we provide the lifeguards. You're going to have to provide the extra personnel to manage this social distancing requirement if you want to keep your pool open, which means we would have to hire more personnel. And I don't think we're in a position to do that, because I also, people that can be there, I don't think we're going to see the revenue that we ever had in the past, because memberships will be down, even daily attendance will be down, because we can't let that many people in. Right now, the pool operations are suspended. If something dramatic happens in the next week or so, we think, if everybody thinks that, hey, this thing, maybe, hey, we're good to go, maybe we can look at opening up in the middle of June. But if we get beyond that, there's no chance. I would not want to chance it. I don't think it's wise to spend the public tax dollars and possibly not get anything for what we're putting out. So right now I'm leaning toward the contract, just to have them fill the pool, maintain it for the summer so that we don't do any damage to our pool, and they make sure the filter room is operating properly.
Jerry, I'm sorry, Pam, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Okay, I just want to make sure I'm getting things right for the record. So it sounded like there were 3 options you presented. You said that we owe $8,000 for the month of April if we decide to open the pool.
No,
Is that what you said?
we paid them $8,000 already. We owed that to them because
Okay.
even in the off season, they start their recruitment to hire people for the summer. So we know they had some expenses. They were even down
Okay.
a few times to even start looking at what maintenance items they can do. So we owe that to them.
Okay.
I have no problem. But if we just close the pool and say we're done, we're going to do nothing, that's all we would owe them for the year. But if we want to fill the pool, the option 2 would be fill the pool, let them maintain it so there's no stagnant water, make sure the pump house filters are all working fine. If we don't do any damage to the aluminum pool, we would owe them another $6,500, total of $14,500. We already paid them the $8,000. So, and then the other ones, there are other options from June 15th, July 1st, and July 15th, which I don't think are viable options.
Pam,
Got it. Thank you.
can I ask a question? Okay, I didn't hear, okay, I have a report, this one here, Swim Safe Pool Management Report. And so, could I just hear from Steve for a minute? Steve?
Yes, ma'am.
So, so you and Jerry have talked about this and come to that consensus about the viable options aren't really viable options. They're not good options.
Well, I think there's a date that we don't want to open beyond, which is July the 15th, which is the options that Swim Safe presented us. I mean, this pool thing is going to be a tough call. Me and Jerry spoke this morning. We're not sure. I mean, the virus is not gone, and there's different reports that say the chemicals in the water kill it. It's not yet confirmed yet. But that being aside, the thing that we have to decide is, I would not like for us to leave somebody has a lot of background noise. I don't know who it is. But I would not like for us to leave our pool empty and we have a lot of expenses next year because the pool has just been left empty, meaning damage to the bottom from the sun or because when things are idle, sometimes you get damages. But yes, Ms. Boyd, to answer your question, you have a Swim Safe report that has a lot of options as to how much we would pay if we opened at a later date, and then also how they could open the pool and try to operate it in a safe manner with social distancing in the water, and on the deck and so forth. But it's just, I don't know. It's just a tough call. But me and Jerry spoke about it this morning. And to answer your question, Ms. Boyd, past a certain date, I don't feel comfortable. It's going to be limits on how many people can come in the pool, and some people are just not going to want to come. But I mean, I just think the best thing to do is to lay out every option, let everybody see it, and then make a decision on what's best.
I'm fine with that. I heard after hearing Jerry, I just wanted to hear it from recreation as well. I wanted to hear both.
Yeah, it's just I mean, you have the report. If council, if you want to see the report, we can get you the report. So everybody is looking at the same information. And I don't
That would be helpful.
I don't know if council has the options of what the payment would be if we open July the 15th versus July the 1st or July 15th. So I guess you all probably need to have all that information so everybody's looking at the same thing.
Yeah, that would be helpful. I think if you could try to scan it and send it to us. Or maybe Jerry can help with that.
Yeah, we thought we were going to have a meeting, but there were technical difficulties last week. So we weren't able to have the meeting. That's the reason I had the report too. All right.
I mean, we're just in a very challenging time. I mean, it's almost day by day, the information. So, you know, just making some tough decisions this year, tougher than probably ever.
Yeah, the one thing that I stated when we met before is for us not to make decisions in front of the governor. We always, after the governor makes a decision, just because he says we should do something, doesn't mean we have to do it. So I'm just for doing whatever's best and safe for, you know, our community. So I'll make sure you all get the information.
Ms. Brown?
I have a question. The information that you're referring to, Ms. Boyd, is this information, the information that you have, is this information other than what Jerry has? Is that the same information you have, Jerry?
Swim safe. Oh, go ahead.
Stephen forwarded me a letter, and so did Swim Safe, on Swim Safe's plan to safely open community pools. That's a different document.
It's a different document?
It's a different document, and it has nothing to do with the cost of opening based on certain dates and scenarios.
So are you saying that there's more information out there?
The additional information is from Swim Safe, how they believe as an organization, they will open up community pools. And they also do this for a number of HOA associations and other smaller community pools. When I say community, neighborhood pools. So that's their goal, getting it out to all their clients, saying, hey, we can help you. They're doing this because they can't afford to lose a season.
Okay.
Business to make money operating pools, and with the pools all shut down, they could be out of business.
Yeah.
Honestly, I just got to put it out there. I'm not for opening the pools. I can't see that report is going to say anything that's going to change my mind. I definitely did not know that it was an aluminum pool. And with that being learned, I definitely would be okay with paying them the $6,000 for them to put the water in the pool so that it does not get damaged, and we do not have this expense next year because the pool was damaged because we didn't have anything in it. But however, honestly, I mean, just putting it out there, I don't see how we could even consider opening pools. We're not going to get the revenue. It's not worth putting, I don't believe, people at risk. The first thing that's going to happen, if something happens, they're going to look to sue the village. There are other pools around us that are closed. You're going to have those people trying to come to the pool that's open. We're not going to be able to handle that. You can't put all those people in. You can't I just can't see, honestly, how you can maintain social distancing.
So here's what I would say to that.
I just really can't. And to me, it's almost a no-brainer.
So here's what I would say, Rosemary, and whatever decision we decide to make, we just make a decision that's best for us. I just think everybody should have all the information in front of them, and then we make a decision, because of course, if a pool opens, there's going to be a limit on how many people can even be in the pool. So regardless to whoever around us closes their pool, when they open pools, they're going to put a limit on the number of people that can come. Rosemary, I agree with you. I don't see, if this virus is still out here, I don't see how, it's just fluids and water, and it's unsure if the chemicals kill it or not. So I'm with you on that, but we all should just have all the information in front of us, and we look at the same thing, and then a decision is made.
I hear you, but honestly, my decision's made.
I agree with him, Rosemary, because I'm with the new.
Raise my hand 50 times.
Oh, I'm sorry, Kiana. Go ahead. I apologize.
Go ahead. You were already talking. I'll go after you.
No, I apologize. You go ahead, and I apologize. Go ahead.
Okay. So just, Jerry, this is a clarifying question for you. The document that you're talking about that Steve has and that Ms. Boyd had, that is a general document that was created by SwimSafe that was not specific to the village of Woodlawn. And then what you're saying, what you have is something specific to Woodlawn that includes different options with the associated costs. Am I understanding that correctly?
100%.
Okay. Okay. And then the other thing too, Ms. Boyd asked Steve, she asked you what you thought, whether or not we should open the pool, but I don't think you answered. I want to know what you think. If you had to make this decision on your own without, working with council or anyone else, with the information that you have, would you open the pool?
Can I say this, Stephen? You're the same as it was today when we talked.
So Jerry, I'm about to answer. I know how to answer for myself, so I'm going to answer. So I look at it two ways. I would not feel comfortable sending my kids to a pool with everything I know, but at the same time, I can't answer for other residents in our community that vote and pass a levy, and they may feel comfortable, or they may feel comfortable with the information. So it's just tough. SwimSafe has sent us a proposal based on recommendations from the governor on how they can operate a safe pool. Everybody just look at it and we make a decision. I don't see how we open it and people don't get exposed. And I'm gonna tell you, I just lost one of my good friends last week, and I'm not for putting people at risk. But again, when we make decisions, of course I have a personal opinion, but we have to do what's best for all. So I don't know if I would send my kids to a pool, but Kiana, you may have information and you may feel very comfortable sending your kids to the pool. So as a resident,
I don't.
I'm just saying, I'm just putting it out there. So if
I know what you mean.
If Jane Doe has information and they feel comfortable, we just have to make the decision that's best for all. I'm not sending my kids to a pool this summer. So I hear you, Rosemary, but I just want everybody to have all the information.
So I think we should go that route.
Thank you.
Every
And I agree
person should have the information.
Exactly.
If
I
Jerry
make
can
these
help us and
calls each
Steve,
week.
I will send you all a copy of the report from SwimSafe.
okay, that would be great. At least we have that information. So if we do have to make a final decision for the summer, we have the information and we don't have to scramble trying to figure out the pieces to it. So everybody will have the information and then we can go from there.
And I feel that way too, because I talk to at least 10 people a week when I make these calls, and I just like to give all the information. Do I feel comfortable with it opening? Not at all. And it's really scaring me with this new disease, the multi-inflammatory thing that children are getting. But I want to talk to people and I want to give them everything we have.
Because I do have to agree with Ms. Brown, the liability on it too. I don't think we've even talked about that. There's definitely probably quite a bit of liability, that could fall on us. So we have to look at every single scenario and not just make our decision, based on if this happens, but facts too, that it could put the village in a pretty bad position if something does go wrong, just like with anything. So we have to think about it full circle. So I just think it helps if we have all the information. So as time goes on, we get to summer, we can make a sound decision as a group with all the information that we have coming from our governor, facts, as well as information from SwimSafe, and think about, our residents as well. So that's what we do. We represent them. So.
Did I answer your question, Kiana?
Yes, thank you. I think it would be really helpful, and I'm going to speak on behalf of everybody at this point. I think it would be really helpful if we put a deadline on when this decision needs to be made, because we talked about this a month ago and now we're here talking about it again. I think that we need to make a decision sooner rather than later. And then whatever decision we make, that's it. Because it could be June by the time we try to figure something out.
And I would say, whatever decision we make, it's for what's good. I just from all the meetings I have and the Zoom meetings, and I speak to so many people, I just did not want us to make a decision in front of the governor or make a fast decision, and then we come back and have to go back against what we say. But Kiana, we do need to make a decision, because the flip side is that, and I talked to Jerry about this earlier, if we don't open the pool because of safety reasons, that's fine. But then our messaging to the community needs to be consistent. And then we need to look at, me and Jerry talked about this morning, addressing our renovation issues that we need. And maybe we say to the community, we're not open, it's not going to feel safe, but we are going to use some levy money to make some kind of improvements at the pool, so that we come back next year with a wow factor and people are extremely happy.
Yeah.
I don't think that this particular meeting is where we should make the decision, because really this is just the financial piece of it. And that's why I added it to our agenda. I think we should talk about this in exec or some other meeting. Once we get the information, maybe we can call talk to the mayor about calling some sort of special meeting soon, maybe before the end of the month, to try to make a final decision on SwimSafe.
It could be a special meeting, but you wouldn't be able to discuss it in executive session.
Or a special meeting, some type of special meeting. I just know that this is not the meeting that we should make that decision now.
We have a council meeting at the end of the month. I think it needs to be addressed then at the general council meeting.
Okay.
I think we should drag this on any longer, because if we do decide in June that we said, oh, we're going to open the pool, we would have to have legislation again.
Right.
Or a floor vote from council to authorize me to renew, basically to unsuspend the contract. So I think our decision should be done at the council meeting at the end of the month. And right now I'm not in favor of opening the pool.
Right.
I just want to say one more thing. I watched the report where he gave the date and he opened the pools, for opening of the pools. But it was also said at that same meeting that they're not telling us to open the pool. They're just saying that, we are capable. They're giving us the options. So
That's
they're
what I
not
said.
saying that we have to open the pools.
Yeah,
We need to make our own decision. Each municipality
yeah.
needs to make their own decisions.
And
They're just making it very clear they're not restricting us from opening, but you need to make your own decision as to whether or not you feel it's a safe decision to open your pools.
Okay.
This needs to be a council discussion, so if we
Okay.
go on to the next item.
Right. So we're gonna,
that'd be great.
okay, we're gonna move forward because we don't have as much time. We're gonna give this back to Tim briefly so he can finish up his report.
Absolutely.
Tim,
Yes, sir.
you're going to jump to compensation and police and fire, or are you?
I am.
Can I just
Yes,
kind of shorten this real quick? If you read the last sentence in his report, it's the test right now, because it says the current pandemic has made this a difficult issue to address. I mean, we know that our police officers and our firefighters are the lowest, if not one of the lowest paid in Hamilton County. To create some job retention, we need to adjust that pay scale, but I just don't know where our revenues are going to be. Neither does Tim right now because of this. My suggestion is we revisit this maybe in a couple of months to see how this is playing out with our revenues. At the same time, I also want to tell you, we need to consider doing something, because if we don't raise the raises, or raise the weights of our police and fire, we're going to continue to lose personnel, and we're going to be going through the training constantly, and it's costing us as much money to train these new officers, new firefighters, new paramedics, and then they turn around and leave on us. We need to be able to give them some benefit of job security and some form of a wage increase to keep them here. Tim and I will continue to look at this and provide a recommendation to you for sure.
Absolutely. And I think that pretty well sums it up, Jerry, on that whole thing. If anybody has any questions about retention, now's the time, I think.
Just a quick statement. Jerry,
Sure.
weren't you going to, the wage ordinance that we're supposed to pass every year? We didn't do one. You were going to put that one that we had, the last one that had the present wages on there. You were going to bring that forth so that we can pass that?
Yeah, I've been working on that. I've asked Ashley to go through the payroll to list everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Can I ask this question too? In our pay ordinances, we list every employee's name. I don't find that to be a necessity. Neither does our law director. She said she doesn't know why we do that. Because when I came here last year, I was surprised that we list them by name. Because technically, if that individual leaves and we hire somebody new, we should be passing a new ordinance to include their name on the ordinance. But if we classify them by position, we're covered.
I think what was happening, what has happened in the past within history is that some people were being paid at a salary they were not supposed to be paid at, and there was never any legislation, if you will, to be found as to why these persons were being paid what they were being paid. So that had to do with some incidents that happened in the past, okay? So what needs to happen by doing it by position and so forth and so on, the record keeping and the responsibility and the ownership of people being paid the salaries that they're being paid has to be monitored very closely.
Their pay sheets for everybody that is receiving compensation should have that amount listed on their pay sheet and signed off by the manager, department head recommending it, and the manager with the approval of council.
Yeah, it should. So what was happened a couple of times, what happened, people were being paid at a rate that we did not know about, and that proper channel was not followed.
So is there an objection to have an ordinance without those names, or do you want to continue to have the names?
I would just like for it to be done so that there is accountability. Okay.
I think we're
And,
getting there.
yeah, it's accountability. Because what happens is, you know, I don't know if Kiana was here for it. Someone was paid at the salary and we found out about it afterward.
Mhm.
And then we had to go and make an
retroactive.
adjustment. Yeah, we had
Yeah.
to go and make an adjustment in their favor, which it happened more than once.
Yep.
So you're basically saying with past history, you think it should be by name? I've never seen it by name in other places, but it's usually by responsibility or whatever their title is.
What I'm saying is, if it could be done by title, and that
Right.
accountability is there.
Right, right.
I would vote for doing it by title. I think that, doing it by name may have helped in the past, but that is not allowing for that accountability for the individuals that have done, things that they weren't supposed to do.
Yeah.
I think that makes our jobs harder to have to change the way we're reporting information to go back and micromanage or double check something when people should just do it the right way the first time.
Yeah.
And understand, yeah.
Salaries, public information anyway?
Yes.
Salaries, are they public information?
Yes.
They
Like
are.
teacher, I'm a retired teacher.
It
and our
is. It
salaries
is public information, yes.
Pam,
Yes.
can I add one more thing to that?
Sure.
One more thing to that real quick, the pay ordinance. As we were all talking, I thought maybe the best way to do this, I'll talk to Emily and we do the pay ordinance by title. Maybe for this first time, just to help everyone out, we just have an exhibit listing everyone's name and current salary or hourly rate. So you all know where they're at.
That's fine.
That works.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. I'll talk to Emily about it.
Yeah, okay.
Any
Okay.
other questions? Okay, Tim.
Alrighty. I think the next piece I had was the overtime report. We've kind of already been through that. I'll just sort of let that one go. Payroll changes. We talked about the changes we made to payroll already. We've gone through the compilation status of the audit report. I will go ahead and present council with a financial report related to the Woodlawn Special Improvement District for their review and approval at the next council meeting, along with our village financial statements. Those all have to be submitted via Hinkle. And then as far as our audit status, we are undergoing our 2018-2019 audit from the auditor of state. We've done a really good job of giving the auditors everything that they've been asking for. They've been satisfied. Ashley's been great with that, and also Lieutenant Forth and Chief Johnson helped out on a couple of things I was trying to find, and their turnaround time was just great, and that's very much appreciated. Does anybody have any questions on either of those? Anything we just kind of went over there real fast? Just say no.
Nope.
Okay. We had one intra-fund transfer where we moved a little bit of money around between accounts for the fire department for between equipment and supplies. And then my last item is an appropriations ordinance that we'll present to council at the meeting. That's also included in your packets. And that ordinance, just kind of briefly, is to make appropriations for tax collection fees that the Hamilton County Auditor charges us. Those fees don't physically come out of our account. They're taken before the auditor sends us the payments. But those do have to be accounted for and therefore appropriated for, so that amendment allows for that to happen. The other big thing, we're going to go ahead and appropriate for the payments that have already been made on the fire truck in January. Those need to go ahead and be accounted for under principal and interest payments. Originally, they simply weren't, so we can go ahead and fix those. And then the other thing with the fire department is we'll go ahead and pay the ambulance lease purchase agreement out of the fire levy fund as well. That'll hit the principal and interest accounts on those. And I believe that is all I had for my report. If anybody has any questions, I suppose now's the time.
Any other questions on Tim's report?
The report, he has the revenues. We will have to approve that at the upcoming council meeting.
I missed the first part, Jerry.
In Tim's report, he did include the expenses and the revenues. At our council meeting, our upcoming council meeting, we should approve those, acknowledge receipt. That council has received them and motion to approve them. Apparently, we should have been doing this every month, and it wasn't being
correct.
He has a poor connection. Yeah, it says internet unstable. Is Jerry back? We kind of lost you, Jerry.
I can.
We lost you, Pam. I mean, I saw Jerry.
Yeah, I saw and heard him too.
Yeah.
Oh, because okay, maybe my connection that was unstable. The last part, you said something in regards to at the council meeting, some reporting. I heard expense, and that was it.
Expense and revenue reports for each month would be reported at the council meeting and motion to approve. As a village, we should be doing that every month.
Okay.
Apparently in the past, they've never done that. So not as frequently as we should have been. So I think at some of the finance committee's meetings I was in, they talked about them, and then as long as we recommend to approve the report from the finance committee meeting, we should be okay.
Okay. Any other questions for Tim? If not, we'll just briefly, is Charles on the line?
You're muted. Somebody, you're muted.
Hello.
Hey, Charles.
There you go.
So Charles, we're just looking to get an update on the, you sent us a few reports.
Yes.
The revenue year to date and monthly. You want us to give us just a brief overview? And then I have one question.
Yes, ma'am. So if you look at your April report for 2019 and 2020, just the monthly for April, in the email that I sent, we are down significantly for the month of April by 39%. The collection for April of 2020 was 476,000, you see, and for April of 2019, April is always our biggest collection month, of course. We collected 781,000 for April of 2019, and 476,000 for April of 2020. That's a 39% decrease. Sure, of course, this is due to the pandemic that we continue to face. And with the revenues being down, of course, that's going to make for the amount that we can set aside for the road levy to be down. The very last report shows our 2019 and our 2020 road levy amount per month. The total amount collected since the road levy began in January of 2019 is $900,272. That's the total amount collected. In April of 2019, 75,650 was collected just for that month alone. To be honest, before this pandemic began, I thought it would have been realistic for us to collect about 95,000 for April of this year. But you see, we only collected $62,000. Of course, with collections down, I'm glad that at least a silver lining is of course, filings are down as well. And with filings being down because of the tax deadline being in July, I'm hopeful that we'll make some of that up between now and the new tax deadline of July 15th. Collections are all over the place. It's really interesting as to how it's working out. Some companies that we thought would be down, in actuality, they're up. And then some other companies are down significantly. So it's hard to gauge what I'm saying, how the cash is going to flow. Of course, we can look at companies like Waffle House. They've been closed all month long. We didn't receive anything from them, of course. But other companies, some things are down, some things are up.
So you're saying some of them are paying on schedule and some aren't, which is, I mean, you're talking about, I mean, a pandemic that we've never experienced, but some will pay just like there's nothing going on. Some will hold off and some just won't pay. So that's the question too, when it comes to July, when the deadline comes, and even after the deadline, like I expect for things to pick up probably come the end of June into July, probably higher than it's been for the months prior, the previous months. But you're also going to have those ones that's probably not going to pay, either just not going to pay or don't have the ability to pay. So it'll be interesting to see where the chips fall. Once only time will tell of how they will fall and how we as a village will have to figure out how to handle that. Because we were talking about court at some point, but the sensitivity of it is a big, question mark as well, because we're still a business that are trying to stay in business, but also it's a sensitive too, because there's many, many jobs lost and every other things that are in that. Those marbles are all in the hat, right?
Right. Now you got to keep in mind our biggest collection is in withholdings.
Right.
So
yeah.
For companies who have withheld that money from their employees that are located here in Woodlawn, we expect those dollars. But the only way that we know if we collected what we should have is at the end of the year, when we do a recon on what their federal, their 1120 or their 1065 says, based on what we collected each month of the year. So those dollars we expect. because they've been withheld or supposedly withheld from their employees. So that's expected money. The net profits can be all over.
Right, but if
We don't know
if
that.
people aren't working, then there's no withholding.
Right, right. That's what I mean. That's gonna be.
Yeah,
that's
you
gonna be
can't
real
recoup that.
interesting. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
correct.
It won't,
Hey,
yeah.
Charles,
Can you
I jump in
repeat,
there real-
please, a couple?
Go ahead.
I just was going to ask Charles if he could just repeat a couple of those totals so I can make sure I have it correct for the record. You said the total since January 2019 in the road fund.
Yeah.
Did you say $972,000?
900,000, 270.
900, 272?
Yes, ma'am.
And then you said the April 2020 total was how much for the road?
$62,089.
$62,089. Thank you.
That report was sent on Friday. You should have that in your email.
Okay. Thank you.
Welcome.
Hey, I got a question.
Yes.
What would be the plans for I know we were talking about this some months ago, and this will be a few months out, but about the tax court.
Yes, that's an issue that we do need to revisit, and we still need to follow through on that. I do see the tax court being a plus for us that we need. So it looks like June, if I'm not mistaken, I want to say June 9th is regular court when we will begin back with regular court. So I'm hopeful that we can start tax court before July is over with. Because that's something that we need to go forward with.
So what would you be collecting on if you do start this, say, August? What will you be collecting on, 2019?
Yes.
Okay, so these are prior.
Yes.
Okay.
These will be even years
2018?
Before that, yeah.
19,
Okay.
prior to 19, yes.
So we have a list of people, residents or whatever, that have not paid taxes that we need to move forward with, basically.
Not only they have not paid, but have not filed.
Okay.
The list is being compiled.
Okay. And do we know at this current time of a number of people that we have in the village that haven't filed and haven't paid? Do we know what those numbers are? Or are we looking into those numbers?
Well, one thing we need to do is that we haven't been able to do in prior years is get in touch with the state Ohio Department of Taxation. Once the deadline of July 15th has passed, we will have access to who has filed a state of Ohio income tax return. Compare that to who hasn't filed a local Woodlawn return to be able to match those numbers with the ones that haven't filed for their local returns, if I'm being clear. So once the deadline has passed and we're able to get that list from the state treasurer, the state auditor, Ohio Department of Taxation is what I'm trying to say. Once we're able to get that list from the Ohio Department of Taxation to see who has filed a state return with an address in our boundaries, we'll be able to know that answer that you asked.
So I got a question to Tim. So is there any software or anything that could be available to help us, to assist us with that? Because I don't think I don't really know because I'm pretty new on council, but I don't think we've ever looked at it that way. I think that could be a huge additional revenue for us if we can really figure out who lives here, who's filing, who's not. So we always know the number of the question mark of who could possibly owe Woodlawn dollars that could help, us, the municipality, full circle, if we can try to figure that out at some point. I'm not saying it has to be this year, but it could be a project that could really help us.
Yeah, I would agree with you. If we're able to get access to something like that, I think it would be very beneficial. We'll go ahead. I'll make a note to make a couple of phone calls as well and see if there's anything out there. There's currently nothing that I'm aware of, but it's not something that I've checked into currently either. So I'll make sure that I do that.
Yeah, because we know Charles is pretty solo on the taxes. I know in past years there's been even a part-time person or somebody in addition to it who has helped him. So we can really figure out if this is something that could really help us bring in more revenue, especially with everything that's going on with the pandemic. And we know that, there's going to be funds and cuts and, things that are going to be required for our municipality. I think if we can try to figure that out at some point soon, even if it's 6 months down the road or whatever, I just think that would be a huge plus for us.
Would be.
Absolutely.
I agree with Pam. I can't see that happening within the next couple of months. To me, that's something that,
Oh, yeah.
well, 6 months down the line, even January 1,
Yeah.
2021, might be that way. It would give us an opportunity to get everything in order, the standard operating procedures, how we're going to go about it, and so forth and everything. To just really try and rush into it right now, I just don't think that it would serve us best. You know what I'm saying?
But actually, with the downtime that we have now that things have slowed down, it would probably give us an opportunity just to even do a little research on it and try to figure out, how to even go in that direction, because it might not be something that can be answered in a couple months. So like Tim said, if he could start, just looking at it a little bit at a time and trying to figure it out, maybe this time next year, maybe we will have it figured out of how to know how many people are here in our municipality and figure out, like some of our larger municipalities have done. They know that you live there, they know that you work there, and they figured it out. You might get a letter in the mail and you don't even expect it.
Yeah.
So
I think a 2021
yeah.
date would look good.
Yeah.
Just my opinion.
Yeah.
Right. And I'll start to make some of those phone calls here as well and see what everybody else is kind of doing and see what I can find. We'll see what we can get together.
Yeah, that sounds great.
One of the things I did want to add, Charles, I think when you and I looked at the tax reports last week, it looked like the withholdings themselves from the businesses, those were down about 18%.
Right.
And I kind of believe we kind of thought that was a pretty decent indicator of how things might actually kind of really pan out. It was interesting that number should kind of sort of be like a live number. It's interesting that Hamilton County had kind of warned everybody, hey, everything's going to be down about 20%.
Right.
We were down about 18 in withholdings. I kind of speculate that's kind of how it'll sort of pan out.
Right.
And do you agree with that?
I do agree with that. With the residents and the businesses being down greater numbers, a greater percentage, that's due to the new deadline being pushed back to July. But I do agree with the withholdings, 18%.
I have one other question that I noticed just from the reports that you sent and from Tim's report. The tax dollars coming in, when I looked at your total dollars, so you had internal deposits of about 401,000, and then there was taxes from the road fund that was about $62,000. Which was about $463,000 total. And that was on the Tim's report that he sent out. And then I noticed on your report, you had it, the business account, the residential account, and the withholding accounts. So there's like $67,236 for the business account. You have residential account, I think it was like 35,000, and then there was a withholding account, and it was total $476,000. And I noticed that it was about $12,000 that was short, making it, I assume, if I looked at it right, to in the bank, which may mean a couple things. It could mean that April 30th came and all the checks just didn't get deposited and it'll flow over to May. But I was wondering if, for two questions really, is somebody reconciling monthly on those differences so we can understand what they are? Because I just looked at this receipts listing and just noticed there was a variance. So it's no different from having a checking account and some checks make it to the bank and get cash and some don't. And we call those our reconciling items. So I was just wondering, on your end, Tim, is somebody reconciling that, or is that something the LGS is doing for now through March? Or do you look at will you at some point look at these accounts monthly to say, his report says this, but the deposits say this, and this is our difference there?
Right. A lot of that, I think, to what you said before, Pam, is likely a timing issue, where Charles gets everything input into his side at a certain date and then brings everything over to our side. And then Ashley goes ahead and codes it in when she receives it. But yes, we can absolutely, I don't think it's been done in the past here, but I can absolutely make that a thing where we go ahead and reconcile between those two systems. I think it's kind of something we've kind of talked about internally. It just hasn't quite happened yet. But I think that'd be beneficial just to make sure, first of all, that those two systems are showing the same amounts. And then again, secondly, so that when we present these to council, we can have a reconciliation report to show those variances and how they work out.
Yeah, I just think it's pretty important with it being tax, just so we know that those deposits make it.
Correct.
If it's not making it in, and I know how things go, you can close the month out and they make it in on May 1st, but when he's pulling the report for April, it's not going to show. So I just saw that short difference there. It was about $12,000, and I just assumed that those checks probably made it in May, and May may be up more because you got that $12,000 in there for May. That should have been for April. So I know how that works, but at least if there's a huge balance, if it's hundreds of thousands of dollars, then council knows that that's what happened.
Absolutely.
I kind of knew what reports to kind of look at to see it, but
yeah, and really, once LGS has done their side of things, one of the things I'll add to my group of reports to council will be the bank reconciliation report, as well as a fund balance report. That'll help everybody know where we're really at with everything. I just, unfortunately, with those guys still cranking away on what they're doing, it doesn't do any good to present it because they're not going to be right.
Okay.
So yeah.
And Charles, you and I had talked about that when I kind of first came on anyway, of just, how do we know if those checks really make it in to the bank? So, I mean, I think it's just good when, people have questions, you can say, hey, I had $12,000 that got deposited on, May 5th, just because of the holiday or the weekend or whatever it may be.
Sure.
So does anybody else have any other questions on income tax? If not, we can move to any new business. If anybody has any questions. I have one thing to propose, but I'll let I kind of did my homework this time. Does anybody else have anything? For new business, I have just a proposal. We talk about a lot of numbers, of course, in our finance meeting. And what I would like to see, and I need your input, council, on this, or Kiana and Ms. Boyd as well, to see the department heads come up with some type of some type of statement, 1 or 2 minutes during our meeting. Far as giving us information that maybe they're looking into grants, or they expect some huge expense or something to come through their department, or some income that no one knows about that may be beneficial for council just to know. So I don't know how you feel about this. I don't know if we, have police and fire 1 month and public works another month, or if we just have them come into the meeting, maybe briefly, if they're not able to stay the entire hour or whatever, hour and a half that we have on the books for this. But I just think could be beneficial to us if those department heads, if they have grants or things like that, just come to the table and give us that information. Sometimes I feel like I have some information, but not all. So what do you guys, ladies, think about that? I don't really know how to do it, but
do you think that's something that could be done at our CAL meetings that we have every other month? That could be made a part of that?
Could be.
At our CAL meetings, as opposed to them coming every month?
Yeah, could be.
And I think that's kind of where we were at and how we kind of operated with our CAL meetings.
That would be good, just for the finance piece of it, because I hear that some, police is looking for grants or maybe found a grant, but I don't think everybody else knows that. And where could it fit into the budget? They may be talking to Tim, they may not. Maybe because, they went on their own and found these grants or whatever, but I think it might be beneficial, especially to our finance person as well as the finance committee, especially when it comes to budget times and stuff like that. And I don't know, what you think, Jerry?
If I can add one thing, again, since last July, I've told all the department directors that if they are going to apply for any grants, that it requires a financial commitment on behalf of the village. I want to know before the application.
Yeah.
Because I want to make sure council's aware that we're applying for a grant, and it's either, say, it's a 50% match or a 25% match or a 10% match. I still want to make sure council's aware there's some expense out there on our end, but we're going to get this grant, to make sure council's comfortable with it too. So I've already informed all the department heads of that situation, because I didn't want them applying for grants and then find out, well, we got a 50% grant or match and council wasn't aware of it, or it wasn't even budgeted.
So you think Tim may sign off on some of those too, or? I
Yeah.
mean, I think we should have some type of policy or
A protocol, right,
something?
that it has to be followed, put in
Tim-
writing.
Yeah, Tim would have to say, yeah, we can make the financial commitment. To say, yeah, we have the funds available to meet that obligation.
Yeah, I just
I
want to
don't
make
want-
sure it's full circle that,
Yeah,
especially he's included, because, I mean, I think it's just important that he is when you're talking about anything that's financially, that, financial that has to do with the village. Tim is our representative. And I just think he should be signing off or paperwork or something. I don't think they should go ahead and do it. And then, not that they can't look for it, but I think he should be definitely in on it as well as you.
I think there should be a policy and procedure that maybe Jerry and Tim or something, you can come up with to guidelines that need to be followed. I absolutely agree with you. You shouldn't just be able to write it without consent from the village.
Yeah.
And I think to Jerry's point, any kind of a match we have to know about, because it has to be budgeted for and appropriated.
Right.
And the worst thing in the world is to go ahead and get approved for the grant and find out the funds aren't there for the match.
Yeah. Yep.
I think just permission, period, like Pam was saying and Jerry was saying. I think you need to get it signed off on by the village administrator, the finance director, or whatever. It's a great thing to bring grants in. Go ahead, Pam.
No, I was just saying I agree, because the other question for me is, when you have to apply for a grant, you also have to submit a budget. So
Yeah.
he should absolutely be involved in putting that budget together.
Yeah.
Because we also know anytime you have a grant, besides a match, there's also expenses for personnel and other things that, you know, we don't often think about when we're putting a budget together, but people have to do that work. So we have to account for that also.
Maintenance of that grant, yeah. But still, I think that's something that, you know, should be discussed at our CAL meetings.
That's a good idea.
After all the procedures are followed.
Is there any other new business or concerns, questions before we adjourn the meeting?
Before you adjourn, Pam,
Yes.
I don't know if this is new business, but it's related, and Garrick's not here tonight. But I believe he's the chair of law. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Because we did instead of doing a Zoom law committee meeting, we had Emily send out a report to everyone with all the proposed legislation for the upcoming meeting. And I talked to Emily, we'd like to do the same thing because she said there's nothing really substantial legislation-wise, more routine stuff. And she suggested that we go ahead and do it the same way. Have her send the report out to all the council members for review. And if you have any questions, then direct them directly to her or the administration so we can just keep that rolling. Any problem with that?
No. Nope.
Then I'll get a hold of Emily tomorrow and tell her to go ahead and prepare it that way. But I'll also let Mr. Burkhardt know that that's what the suggestion was. But I want to make sure he's comfortable with it.
So that would mean there's no law meeting this week, right?
Right. I think it was Thursday.
Wednesday or Thursday, yeah, this week. Yeah.
And then Wednesday.
Okay. Any other comments? I make a motion that we adjourn the meeting at 8:41.
Second. Anybody opposed?
Anybody got a vote?
All ayes? Aye.
Raise your hand.
All right.
Okay.
Thanks everyone.
Everybody.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Keith, from ICRC.
Thank you.
Thank you.